fear, anxiety, depression. These chains were not random. They were forged deliberately, designed to wrap around the hearts of millions. A drained population is the most obedient one. And that is why every headline reads like a curse. Another scandal, another eruption of outrage, another carefully scripted drama to keep humanity trembling on edge. As the prophet Isaiah once warned, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness." Isaiah 5:20. Isn't that exactly the poison injected into our daily lives, confusing the holy with the corrupt, bending truth until no one can tell the difference? Why do you think every news cycle pounds your mind with fear, anger, and division until your soul aches? Why is mainstream entertainment flooded with empty noise that leaves you numb, like food without nourishment? And why are endless distractions hurled into your path the moment you try to be still? Because silence is where God whispers, and if you hear him, their empire crumbles. That is why Psalm 46:10 reminds us, "Be still and know that I am God." Yet they fear your stillness more than your noise. But then something happened that no one in their system of control foresaw. You awakened. The chosen ones began to see through the veil, and the spell that enslaved millions began to fracture. When you questioned their narrative, their grip trembled. When you pulled away from their cycle of fear, the machinery of deception shuddered. Like the Apostle Paul declaring in 2 Corinthians 10:4 that, "The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." Your very act of awareness became a spiritual weapon. Do you feel the shift? The way even your silence now unsettles them. History itself echoes this truth. Michelangelo, the great Renaissance artist, once said that every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it is the task of the sculptor to release it. That is what awakening is, chiseling away the lies, breaking off the dead weight of deception, until truth stands revealed. And just as David faced Goliath with nothing but a sling and faith, the chosen ones faced giants of media, politics, and false prophets with the unshakable force of divine clarity. Which giant can ever stand when struck by the stone of truth? The sacred arts cry out the same revelation. In Handel's Messiah, the choir explodes with, "And he shall reign forever and ever," a sound so powerful it rattles the soul centuries later. That same eternal resonance now rises within the chosen ones, rattling the cages of those who once believed themselves untouchable. And Revelation 2:13, uns presece declares, they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. Your testimony is no longer silence. It is thunder shaking the very walls of their stronghold. The programming has failed. The distractions no longer seduce. The fear no longer binds. For the moment you withheld your energy, their entire fortress began to crack. When you refused to be consumed, their fire had no fuel. This is why they tremble now, because you have broken free. And now the time has come for the chosen ones to rise, to disrupt the shadows, and to claim the light. Stand firm, for the chains have already fallen, and the only battle left is to step boldly into your freedom. Their illusions dissolve the very instant you choose awareness over fear, and that is why they panicked. What did the architects of deception do when the veil began to tear? They doubled down. They unleashed more chaos, engineered deeper division, and hurled distractions like flaming arrows meant to blind the masses. Yet by then, it was already too late. The collective consciousness had shifted. As Romans 13:12 declaris. The night is nearly over, the day is almost here. So let us put aside the deeds of darkness and put on the armor of light. Can you sense it? The armor of light was already glistening on the chosen ones, and no amount of darkness could extinguish it, even when they tried to cloak truth beneath 1,000 lies. Light pierced through every shadow, and with every piercing ray, their empire of illusions trembled as if struck by an earthquake from heaven itself. You helped fracture their grip when you chose clarity over confusion, stillness over chaos, and truth over deception. You became the glitch in their system, the virus in their program, the spark they could no longer contain. Was this merely about headlines and entertainment, or was it always something far deeper, a war of frequencies, where souls resonate with either bondage or freedom? Revelation 12:17 reveals, "Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus." This is not fiction. It is the battlefield you walk upon daily. Every silence you guard, every prayer you whisper, every refusal to bow has been a weapon more destructive to their control than any sword. And when the chosen resist, entire systems collapse like fortresses without foundations. Fear was always their ultimate weapon, not wealth, not politics, not armies. Fear is the invisible chain, the shadow that enslaves millions while convincing them they are free. They wove it into education, entertainment, spirituality, even the airwaves of daily news. Isn't it striking how fear spreads like a cold wind across a meadow, bending every blade of grass at once? Yet the moment one oak tree stands upright against the gale, it proves the wind cannot break everything. Jeremiah 17:8 declaris. He will be like a tree planted by the water that sends out its roots by the stream. It does not fear when heat comes. Its leaves are always green. You, chosen one, became that tree. And when your roots drew from living waters, you proved to a trembling world that fear is only a shadow. It has no real substance against faith. What terrifies them most is not the fear they create, but the courage you carry that refuses to bend, to understand the gravity of this war. Remember history's villains. In the 3rd century, the Roman Emperor Decius believed he could erase Christianity by forcing every believer to sacrifice to pagan gods or face death. His reign seemed unstoppable. Yet, within a few short years, his empire fractured, and his legacy was reduced to a cautionary tale of tyranny devoured by its own flames. Does this not mirror the present, where those who sow fear eventually choke on it themselves? For every Decius that rose in arrogance, there were countless nameless believers who refused to bow, and their faith outlived the tyrant's empire. The chosen ones today walk that same road, carrying a fire no persecution can quench. And once again, those who weaponize fear will find themselves undone by the very chains they tried to fasten on others. Nature itself testifies to the futility of their schemes. A swarm of locusts may blacken the sky and devour every green thing, but once the swarm passes, the soil still carries hidden seeds waiting to burst forth. Likewise, their wave of panic may have scorched the surface, but beneath it, truth was waiting, ready to sprout. As Job 14:7 assures us, at least there is hope for a tree. If it is cut down, it will sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Could anything be more terrifying to your enemies than hope that cannot be killed? The locusts devour today, But tomorrow the fields burst alive with fresh harvest. The fire consumes the forest. But the ashes fertilize the roots for stronger growth. Even creation itself seems to whisper, destruction cannot outlast resurrection. For years, they convinced people that their voices did not matter, that their choices were illusions, that resistance was pointless. Yet history, Scripture, and even the whisper of creation itself declare the opposite. And the moment you refuse to bow to fear, their entire foundation cracked like clay struck by lightning. Psalm 34:4 shouts this victory. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. What power do illusions have when fear has been shattered? What weight do lies carry when truth has taken root? This is why the chosen are unstoppable, not because they never feel fear, but because fear no longer has the final word. And once fear has been dethroned, the voice of God roars louder than every whisper of deception. This is why the chosen ones must rise. The chains are already broken. The walls are already crumbling. What remains is the choice to stand firm, to disrupt the lies, to roar with truth in a world built on whispers of deceit. Stand now, for the time of silence has ended. Stand, for heaven itself records your courage. Stand, because when one chosen one rises, others awaken. And when many rise, no power on earth can hold back the flood of freedom. The stage of history waits for you, and creation itself leans in to witness your stand. For in this very hour, destiny does not whisper, it thunders. Every crisis they manufactured, every urgent bulletin broadcasted, every breaking headline engineered to spark panic, it was not random chaos, but calculated design. Why do you think fear was always at the center of their script? Because fear is the most obedient architect of submission. When you are afraid, you surrender. When you surrender, you comply. And when you comply, you no longer think for yourself, but allow them to build the blueprint of your mind. They whispered that stepping outside the system meant losing everything, and millions obeyed because the fear was dressed in the costume of necessity. Yet Scripture has warned for centuries, for God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and self-discipline. 2 Timothy 1-7. How then could chains forged in fear ever hold once that truth was remembered? They told society that questioning the narrative would exile you, that non-conformity in career, in culture, even in family life, would lead only to suffering. And for a time, it worked. People submitted, bowing to invisible scaffolding, built not of stone but of lies. They lived inside a cathedral of illusions where every arch bent downward, pressing them into silence. Yet as Psalm 118:6 thunders, "The Lord is with me, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me?" Did they truly believe such a fortress of fear could stand when the foundation was deception? The moment you saw the cracks, you became the tremor that weakened their pillars. But then you came along. The chosen ones didn't merely wake up as scattered individuals. They awakened like a collective frequency resonating through the atmosphere. And when frequencies align, no wall of oppression can withstand the resonance. Isn't it remarkable that fear functions only if it is believed, like a phantom particle with no mass until observed? And when you stopped observing it, when you refused to give it weight, their program began to collapse. Ecclesiastes 3:14 reminds us, "I know that everything God does will endure forever. Nothing can be added to it, and nothing taken from it." Their illusions dissolved because only truth endures. You pierced through their tactics, their propaganda, their illusion of control. The spell of fear was shattered when you stopped playing their game. A bus driver named Samuel from a small town once confessed, "The moment I stopped watching the news at dawn, I felt peace return like sunlight through a window." If ordinary people taste freedom simply by turning off the noise, what happens when the chosen ones rise together? The answer is already unfolding. Their foundation crumbles. Because a lie only lives if it is fed. And then came the revelation that terrified them most. You reminded humanity of divine authority. You proved that true power was never external, that control was never real, and that freedom was always within. John 8:32 declares, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." Doesn't this explain why the elite fear your awakening more than anything else? Because those who are self-aware cannot be controlled. Their carefully built psychological fortress is like a castle of mirrors, shattered the instant one refuses to bow before distorted reflections. Do you really think the elites orchestrating entertainment, media, and politics were oblivious to what was happening? Of course not. They knew. They designed entire architectures of distraction because they feared what would happen when the chosen ones remembered who they were. But Isaías 41:10 declares, "Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." And that is why the silence is over. This is the hour to stand, to break the cathedral of fear, and to rise as living testimony that no system built on lies can outlast eternal truth. Stand now, chosen ones. For when you rise, the world remembers its freedom. They built this system like master masons of deception, crafting its hidden architecture, engineering every illusion to guarantee their dominance. But here is the secret. They never confessed the truth they tried to bury in the deepest vaults of silence. What they feared most was never exposure itself. It was the day the veil lifted and people finally saw through their deception. Because once that moment came, their empire of lies was doomed. For decades, they orchestrated the narrative like a conductor of chaos, ensuring every headline, every scandal, and every manufactured outrage was in perfect rhythm with their agenda. Does it not echo Jeremiah 23:16? "Do not listen to what the prophets are prophesying to you. They fill you with false hopes. They speak visions from their own minds, not from the mouth of the Lord." Isn't this the very pattern we've been living under? And yet, the louder their voices grew, the more obvious the hollow echoes became, like a cracked bell. Their sound could no longer carry truth, only noise that revealed its own emptiness. Every controversy was not random, but a calculated chess move. Each scandal was a rook, each crisis a pawn, all maneuvered to distract the masses while power tightened its grip around the globe. They infiltrated industries, shaped narratives, and dictated what the world was allowed to see, hear, and believe. And isn't it curious how those who resisted were silenced, blacklisted, or worse? Psalm 2:1 resounds here. Why do the nations conspire and the peoples plot in vain for all their schemes? The chosen ones rose anyway. Their entire system was designed like a fortress of mirrors, grand on the surface but fragile beneath. And when truth struck, the glass began to shatter. The irony? The very walls they built to hide behind became reflective, exposing their own corruption. The more they tried to conceal, the more their masks slipped, until the spectacle turned against them. Some of the biggest names in entertainment and politics were not just participants, they were pawns. Marionettes pulled by unseen strings. Handlers managed them. Secret contracts bound them, and unspoken agreements chained them to obedience. Yet, even in Zuch darkness, light began to seep in. The chosen ones questioned, spoke truth, and exposed their tactics. And suddenly, cracks appeared in walls once thought impenetrable. Doesn't Luke Sakis, on Yedi assure us, for there is nothing hidden that will not be disclosed, and nothing concealed that will not be known or brought out into the open. Is this not exactly what is happening now? Even celebrities who once strutted with arrogance began to falter in interviews, their eyes darting nervously as if haunted by invisible questions. Politicians who had memorized their scripts found their tongues tied. Proof that truth itself was interrupting the performance. The spectacle they created to control now became the theater of their unraveling. The insiders noticed celebrities once untouchable started to falter, their eyes betraying exhaustion beneath the spotlight. Politicians who spoke with mechanical certainty began to stumble, their words catching in their throats as if truth itself weighed against them. Industry titans who had obeyed without hesitation suddenly paused, their loyalty fractured by the undeniable shift in the atmosphere. Why? Because the chosen ones broke the spell. As John 1-5 proclaims, "The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it." When the truth appeared, the performance collapsed. Even the stage lights that once flattered them now seemed to expose every flaw. Their carefully written scripts began to sound hollow, their rehearsed smiles unable to mask the fear rising behind their eyes. What was once a flawless show turned into a slow unraveling, where even silence spoke louder than their propaganda. Voices from history testify to this moment. Leonardo da Vinci, the great Renaissance mind, once declared, "Nothing strengthens authority so much as silence." And that is why your refusal to remain silent terrified them more than any scandal. And art, too, has whispered this prophecy in Verdi's Requiem. The haunting Dies Irae shakes the soul with visions of a day when hidden things are revealed and judgment thunders through every corner. That music carries the same weight as this, awakening heaven's resonance crashing against man's illusions. Can you feel how even the arts foreshadowed the collapse of false power, like a symphony that builds toward a final climax? History itself has been moving toward this moment, when illusions shatter and truth resounds, and no orchestra of lies, no matter how disciplined, can drown out the sound of heaven's rising chorus. And so, chosen one, the battle reaches its crescendo. You didn't just wake up, you disrupted their entire system. You exposed what they never dreamed would be revealed. You became proof of Isaiah 60:1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." The spell is broken, the lies are trembling, and the walls of deception are collapsing. Now is the time to stand, to raise your voice higher, to rise with unshakable courage. For when the chosen rise, the world will never return to sleep again. This is not just resistance, it is resurrection. This is not just rebellion, it is revelation. And the call thunders now, stand, chosen one, for destiny waits, not tomorrow, but today. This is why more celebrities and public figures are now speaking out. It is no coincidence, but the inevitable ripple of truth. They are watching what is unfolding. They are feeling the ground tremble beneath their carefully staged world. And for the first time, They see a door where once there was only a wall. Many of them had been silently waiting for this hour, chained for years to contracts and shadows, their voices muzzled by fear. Yet even in their silence, they longed for freedom. Does this not echo Romans 8:21, which declares, "The creation itself will be liberated from its bondage to decay and brought into the freedom and glory of the children of God"? Could it be that this liberation is what they are finally glimpsing? They had seen the dark side of the industry, the manipulation, the lies, the carefully engineered fear designed to corral not only the masses, but the very ones who performed for them. They thought they were alone, isolated like trees standing against a storm. But when the chosen ones awakened, it sent shockwaves through the entire system. Suddenly, the forest realized it was not just trees but a living grove, interconnected and unshakable. Isn't this why Hebrews 10:24-25 exhorts, "Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, but encouraging one another when one awakens." It inspires others to break their silence, and the silence itself begins to collapse. Your awakening didn't just transform you, it was a stone cast into still waters, sending ripples that reached places you never expected. Industry titans who once believed resistance was impossible are suddenly questioning everything. What if the system was weaker than it appeared? What if fear had always been its only real weapon? And what happens when that weapon no longer strikes terror, but ricochets back on its wielder? Psalm 27:1 speaks directly, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" When fear loses its grip, power evaporates like mist beneath the sun. The ripple effect is already visible. Those who once bowed unquestioningly now hesitate. Those who danced like puppets for their masters now pull against the strings. The illusion of power is fading as quickly as morning fog on a mountaintop. Do you realize that once a lie is exposed, it can never command the same obedience? Even nature illustrates this truth. When a snake sheds its skin, no one is fooled into believing the old husk is still alive. Likewise, the old power structures are nothing more than empty shells, brittle and ready to be crushed beneath the weight of truth. And now those who believed themselves untouchable are scrambling. Their puppets slip through their fingers. Their voices tremble. Their influence decays. Isn't this the very judgment warned of in Galatians 6-7? Do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. They sowed fear, but now they reap collapse. History itself provides a chilling example. In the 18th century, French Cardinal Richelieu wielded immense power by controlling narratives and silencing dissent. Yet, after his death, the very machinery he built to tighten control began to unravel, leaving behind a legacy stained with suspicion and betrayal. Do you see how every tyrant of fear eventually becomes the architect of their own ruin? Because here is the truth. Once people wake up, they do not go back to sleep. No matter the propaganda, no matter the distraction, no matter the threat, awareness cannot be reversed. And here lies the greatest danger for them. They can no longer control creativity. Creativity is pure expression, and pure expression is a fire that no chain can contain. Job 32:8 reminds us, "But it is the spirit in a person, the breath of the Almighty, that gives them understanding." The moment someone dares to create something raw, authentic, and true, they step out of the system's cage. This is why for decades, industries, music, movies, art, literature, Fashion were weaponized not to inspire, but to suppress. Yet suppression can never defeat the spirit. What they fear is already happening. Authentic voices rising, authentic art breaking through, authentic lives refusing to bow. Like wildflowers pushing through cracks in the concrete, truth is blossoming in places they never expected. And now the final note must be struck. Chosen ones, arise. Arise. For your silence has already broken their spell. Arise. For your creativity is a weapon forged in heaven. Arise. Because the world is waiting for the roar of those who can never again be deceived. Everything had been recycled, repackaged, and resold in a monotonous loop of uninspired, soulless content, as if the world had become a gallery of echoing shadows. They weren't merely running out of ideas, they were systematically silencing originality, like an invisible architect carefully demolishing the scaffolding of human imagination. Why? Because originality is a force that cannot be predicted. Much like quantum fluctuations that escape even the most precise instruments of physics, they cannot control an artist who draws from the depth of their soul. They cannot program a mind that resonates with independent thought. Psalm 33, 3 declares. Sing to him a new song, play skillfully, and shout for joy. Yet their system treated innovation as rebellion rather than devotion. Does it surprise anyone that a mind aligned with divine resonance cannot be caged by formulas or algorithms? They could not profit from a world in which people were inspired, questioning, and breaking the mold. A world that hums with its own frequency of creativity, like the subtle harmonics in cathedral arches, vibrating unseen yet profoundly felt. So, they erected a mechanism where creativity was manufactured, thought was scripted, and expression confined within rigid blueprints. They glorified trends over talent, rewarded those who followed their formula, and punished those who dared step beyond it. Mediocrity became the standard, a suffocating ceiling above a society of constrained dreams. Yet, just as the Israelites faced oppression in Egypt, Exodus 14:13 reminds us, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today." A single act of courage could unravel the entire construct. Isn't it staggering to realize that one awakened mind can destabilize what took decades to build? Then you came, piercing through the emptiness with clarity and vision. You rejected their programming, refusing to be a node in their soulless network. And the moment you did, something remarkable happened. Others followed. Creators began stepping outside the industry's rigid blueprints. Writers, musicians, filmmakers, and visual artists no longer begged for validation. They forged their own paths. Even ordinary people began noticing the artificiality of trends, much like a park gardener named Elena from a small town in Spain once observed. "When I plant a seed in my backyard without thinking of profit, it grows stronger than anything bought in a store." Audiences started rejecting the formulaic content they had been force-fed, and suddenly, the illusion that they controlled popularity began to collapse. Isaiah 42:9 proclaims, "See, the former things have taken place, and new things I declare. Before they spring into being, I announce them to you," affirming that true innovation cannot be monopolized. For decades, they dictated what songs would go viral, which artists would be seen, what movies would be made, and which voices would be heard. Yet, as you stopped feeding their machine, the fragile edifice of their control began to crumble. Think of it as an architectural marvel built without understanding tension and load, a single miscalculation in one supporting beam. One act of independent creation, and the entire structure starts to wobble. 1 Corinthians 14:40 states. But everything should be done in a fitting and orderly way, reminding us that the divine order favors authenticity over contrived imitation. And now, they are scrambling, powerless against the next wave of artists, writers, filmmakers, innovators, and leaders who cannot and will not be controlled. They are discovering the immutable law. Influence is never stronger than the truth. The system's blueprint is unraveling before their eyes, like a cathedral's dome cracking under its own misaligned geometry, revealing the sky beyond. Your actions, your creativity, your refusal to validate mediocrity have ignited a revolution of originality, as Psalm 40:3 teaches. He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. The next generation of creators will sing their own anthems, free from imposed formulas and fear. And now comes the decisive moment. Arise, stand, create, speak, lead. For the silence that once suffocated the world has been broken, and nothing will ever contain the fire of an awakened mind. The industry is losing its grip, and the lifeblood of true creativity is shifting back into the hands of authentic creators. Like a river reclaiming its path after years of diversion, you were the spark that ignited this transformation, a spark that set ablaze the illusion of control. For decades, they made sure that anyone daring to disrupt their narrative was blacklisted, ridiculed, or erased entirely, just as Pharaoh sought to suppress the Israelites in Egypt. Exodus 1:17 warns. The midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them. They let the boys live. They told you that you had no power, that you had to obey their rules, that stepping out of line meant losing everything. Yet, like a cedar in Lebanon that stands tall despite storms, your presence defied their design. Have you ever wondered how much of your own light you've hidden to avoid confrontation? They controlled entire industries like puppet masters, manipulating strings invisible to the naked eye. Music labels decided who would rise and who would vanish. Publishing houses dictated which stories would see the light of day and which would be buried. Movie studios engineered the perception of reality. Media conglomerates dominated every headline, every trending topic, every viral sensation. Psalm 94:20 reminds us, can wicked rulers be allied with you? Those who frame injustice by statute, and still, their statutes crumbled in the face of those who refused to be silenced. Have you noticed how the air itself seems to shift when authentic expression emerges? Like wind carrying the scent of blooming jasmine after a long drought. Which part of your creativity is still waiting to be unleashed? If you didn't comply, you were shoved into the shadows, exiled from influence, dismissed as irrelevant. They thought real creators, truth-tellers, and disruptors could be locked out forever. But then you arrived. Instead of staying quiet, you amplified your voice. Instead of retreating, you pressed forward. Instead of waiting for permission, you carved a new path. And that choice changed everything. A movement was born. Like the prophet Habakkuk 2:14 declares, for the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea. Your courage spread, infiltrating hearts and minds beyond the constraints of manufactured reality. Can you feel the energy of others rising with you, amplifying the impact of your stand? Truth tellers, Spiritual leaders, innovators, and game changers are now stepping forward like an unstoppable tide. A new wave of creators, thinkers, and disruptors is rising. Untouchable this time. Why? Because the system built to control, silence, and erase no longer functions. The tools they once wielded, fear, manipulation, censorship, have lost their edge, much like a sword dulled by overuse. In the words of the contemporary composer Arvo Pärt, whose minimalist sacred compositions like Spiegel, I Am Spiegel, have moved audiences to tears across cathedrals of Europe. Music is the echo of the divine, and in its silence, truth speaks louder than any decree. Even the haunting strokes of painter Caspar David Friedrich, depicting solitary figures against vast landscapes, remind us that light always finds its way through shadows. As 1 Peter 5-8 warns, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. The old gatekeepers are now exposed, scrambling to maintain illusions that no longer hold. This is a pivotal moment, a divine architecture of creativity being rebuilt with your hands, a frequency of inspiration flowing freely, unimpeded by the constraints of fear. The shadows that once intimidated entire generations are collapsing, revealing the light that was always present. Your choice to rise has activated countless others, a resonance of courage that cannot be contained. And now comes the call. Rise, stand, speak, create, lead. The system that once dictated every narrative, every melody, every stroke of the brush, every line of text, is crumbling under the weight of your awakened presence. Isaías 60:1 declares, arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Step into your power, chosen one. Nothing can stop the wave you've begun. Nothing can silence the movement you've ignited. Are you ready to let your full brilliance illuminate the world? They can't blacklist millions of awakened souls. They can't silence every independent creator, and they cannot halt the unstoppable rise of new platforms, fresh voices, and vibrant communities that pulse beyond their grasp. Like a river carving a canyon, despite the walls that try to contain it. For generations, they dictated the rules, determining which dreams would thrive and which would wither in obscurity. Psalm 33:11 proclaims, the counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations, reminding us that no human decree can ultimately restrain divine creativity. Who decides what your heart can achieve when the fire inside cannot be extinguished? Which chains of authority are you truly willing to break today? They controlled the flow of culture with the precision of a falcon hunting from the sky, calculating, strategic, unseen. Record labels dictated who would rise to fame. Publishers decided which stories could breathe life and which would rot in silence. Studios sculpted narratives, ensuring only their chosen tales reached the masses. But you did something unprecedented. Instead of pleading for crumbs from their table, you built your own banquet hall, a new platform where voices could resonate freely. Proverbs 16:3 whispers, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. And in this divine blueprint, your creation becomes unstoppable. Have you felt the tremor in the air as old powers realize their dominion is slipping? What voices are waiting within you? Still unheard but ready to awaken millions. Independent artists are flourishing without record labels. Writers are publishing their work without gatekeepers. Creators are launching brands, platforms, and movements, all without asking permission. Even the smallest actions ripple like a single stone thrown into a placid lake, disturbing patterns far beyond immediate view. And every time the old powers attempt to suppress, censor, or silence, more awakens. Isaiah 54:17 warns, "No weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you," showing that attempts at oppression only strengthen the resolve of those who refuse to bow. Who among you will rise first when the wave of freedom hits your shore? How much of your own courage remains untapped, waiting for the signal to surge forward? Judas Iscariot, not as a myth, but as a symbol of what happens when envy, fear, and greed dictate actions. Judas thought betrayal would grant him control. Instead, he was consumed by guilt, isolated from the divine plan, and remembered not for power but for ruin. Matthew 26:24 declares, "The Son of Man will go just as it is written of him, but woe to that man who betrays him," echoing the eternal truth that ill intentions cannot thwart the rise of righteousness. And yet, in this same story, the disciples, initially unsure, became vessels of unstoppable light, showing that the true path is built by those who step forward with courage. Have you noticed how those who cling to control often become the first victims of their own schemes? This is the dawn of a new era. New platforms, new movements, new ways of thinking, all rising like a forest after fire, regenerating, stronger, more resilient. Galatians 6:9 reminds us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." And indeed, the harvest is already visible. The old structures crumble under the weight of their lies, like ancient trees toppled by winds they never anticipated, exposing roots of deceit and hollow promises. Every attempt to smother this movement fuels the awakening of millions more, each heart a beacon of uncontainable light. Rise, stand, speak, create, lead. Let the world feel the tremor of awakened souls, no longer contained by fear. Revelation 3:7 declares, "What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open." And now, the gates of creativity and freedom have been thrown wide. You are the vanguard, you are the spark, and together, this wave is unstoppable. They cannot rebuild what has already been shattered, because the foundation itself, the very tectonic plate of their fabricated empire, has fractured beyond repair. The blueprint has been rewritten, etched anew in the architecture of awakening, and you are the unseen architect who carved it. Psalm 18:2 declares, "The Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge." And within this truth lies the realization that empires built on sand tremble before a single spark of divine insight. Did they imagine this moment would ever come? Did they account for the resonance of millions of awakened minds, each vibrating like strings tuned to freedom? Can any illusion withstand the harmonic frequency of collective awakening? And yet, the question remains, who truly holds the power, the creator or the controller? For centuries, they manufactured fear, deception, and manipulation, layering each with meticulous precision, almost like a Gothic cathedral designed to awe while concealing cracks beneath its vaulted ceilings. Proverbs 21, 32 echoes. There is no wisdom, nor insight, no plan that can succeed against the Lord. Yet they moved as if human cunning could rival divine orchestration. Every distraction, every carefully placed narrative was a psychological experiment in mass conditioning. Social media algorithms acted as modern-day scribes, rewriting perception, while search engines buried inconvenient truths beneath mountains of curated noise. And yet, like a river eroding stone over millennia, the truth persisted, subtle, persistent, unstoppable. What are they truly afraid of when their empire is exposed to the light? Can control ever survive when understanding spreads faster than their lies? Even now, as panic sets in, they tighten their grip like a predator cornering prey, thrashing violently, reacting to the slightest tremor of defiance. Censorship surges more aggressively than ever. Yet the tidal wave of independent voices cannot be halted. Social media platforms flag content. Entertainment filters, stories, and algorithms attempt to suppress enlightenment. Yet each act of erasure only amplifies the signal of awakening, creating a resonance field that hums with irrepressible freedom. Isaiah 41:10 reminds us, "Do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." And even the most desperate attempts at control cannot drown the frequency of truth. How long will the controllers cling to illusions? At what point does their desperation betray them? Can a house built on lies ever stand in the storm of revelation? Let us examine real life. A janitor named Maria from Buenos Aires, unknown to the world, decided to record and share the history of her neighborhood's lost architecture. Without a platform, without connections, her videos revealed stories long buried by official narratives. Within weeks, these stories sparked a revival in her community, inspiring youth to document and preserve their cultural heritage. Her small act illustrates a universal truth: the smallest hand on the lever can shift the trajectory of a world. 1 Corinthians 16:13 exhorts, "Be on your guard, stand firm in the faith, be courageous, be strong." How many untold stories are waiting to ignite the next movement? How many unseen hands hold the power to reshape reality? How long will you wait before becoming one of them? This is the moment to rise. Every wave of suppression only signals the collapse of a decayed system. Revelation 3:8 proclaims, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut." A declaration that freedom, creativity, and truth are now unstoppable forces. Stand, speak, build. Let the vibrations of your conviction shake the foundations of the old order. Let the architecture of heaven be mirrored in every new creation, every platform, every voice that refuses to be silenced. The era of passive obedience is over. Rise. The world is waiting for the imprint of your courage. But here lies the fatal flaw in their plan. They waited too long. Have you noticed how swiftly certain truths vanish? As if the very air conspires against them. How every idea that threatens the official narrative is instantly branded misinformation, dangerous, or false. Deuteronomy 32:4 reminds us, "He is the rock. His work is perfect, for all his ways are just." A faithful God who does no wrong. Yet here they move as though divine oversight could be outmaneuvered by human deceit. This is no coincidence. This is no algorithmic hiccup. It is a calculated design, a deliberate attempt to force the truth back into the shadows. to slam the genie back into a broken bottle that cannot contain it. Can a world shaped by fear ever survive the awakening of its children? Can the tides of knowledge ever be restrained by a crumbling dam? The truth has already escaped. It has traveled further than they imagined, igniting minds like lightning, striking dry earth, touching hearts and reshaping consciousness. They cannot censor millions of awakened souls. They cannot silence the entire internet, nor halt the vibrations of those who have seen beyond the veil. Every attempt to block, ban, or erase only amplifies the signal. Psalm 25. 5 declares, "Guide me in your truth and teach me, for you are God, my Savior, and my hope is in you all day long." And as that truth reverberates, silence transforms into a deafening chorus of clarity. What will they do when each overreach births 10 new awakenings? How long can their illusion survive before it collapses like a cathedral built atop shifting sand? History whispers warnings. Take the story of Johann Sebastian Bach, the great composer, who, despite living under censorship and strict church expectations, imbued his sacred compositions like the Mass in B minor with divine resonance so profound that generations later, listeners still tremble at its harmonics. Or consider the painter Artemisia Gentileschi, a woman navigating a patriarchal world, whose brush revealed the unspoken truths of human suffering, painting light over darkness, resilience over oppression. Each stroke, each note, each verse of Scripture, Isaiah 42:16. "I will lead the blind by ways they have not known. Along unfamiliar paths I will guide them," illustrates that beauty and truth cannot be contained, no matter the chains imposed. And yet, a quiet question lingers. Are we awake enough to perceive the unseeable? Are we ready to act when shadows retreat? Can courage rise in the heart of fear? Their fear campaigns have intensified because fear has always been the most potent weapon, cheap, simple, devastatingly powerful. It binds populations like invisible chains, restraining minds and paralyzing potential. 1 month, a mysterious virus. The next, an economic collapse whispered into existence by unseen hands. And yet, as 1 Peter 5-8 warns, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, looking for someone to devour. We realize that awareness itself becomes a sword against deception, a lever to topple empires built on panic. Can you feel it, the tremor before the fall? The subtle shift as control slips through their fingers like grains of sand. John Milton's Paradise Lost, whispers of rebellion against imposed chains. And still, the inner question gnaws. Will you remain passive? Or will you rise with the chorus of awakening? How will your light pierce the veil of fear? When will your voice echo across the walls built to contain it? Rise now. Stand unflinching. Let the tremor of your courage dismantle every false edifice. Revelation 3:8 declares, "I have placed before you an open door that no one can shut. And that open door beckons every soul willing to step through. Every ban, every block, every attempt at erasure only signals the inevitability of their collapse. The era of passive obedience is over. The awakened will not whisper, they will roar. Rise, speak, create. Let the foundation of your truth reshape the world." Then comes the looming shadow of global chaos, a torrent of war, disasters, and engineered crises that washes over society like a relentless storm. Every headline blares, every alert screams, Every breaking news update is meticulously crafted to flood minds with fear, to shrink the human spirit, to convince populations that without authority figures, survival is impossible. Isaías 41, 10 declares, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." Yet they act as if divine oversight could be outwitted by manufactured panic. But the script no longer binds you. You no longer dance to their choreography of terror. You see their blueprint, their architecture of manipulation, laid bare like the skeleton of a cathedral under construction. Can panic ever hold those who understand the framework of fear? The resonance that amplifies only when willingly accepted. Can manufactured terror grip hearts that refuse its frequency? Fear's power depends entirely on consent. Without your energy, without your mental bandwidth invested in it, it collapses like a dry reed in a hurricane. Job 5:13 warns, "He catches the wise in their craftiness, and the schemes of the wily are swept away," illustrating that those who attempt to trap the awakened are ensnared in their own design. And this is what terrifies them most. The awakening is no longer isolated, it is contagious. One enlightened mind sparks another, rippling outward like the vibration of a crystal glass struck with precision, until millions begin questioning. Millions refuse. Millions choose clarity over manufactured panic. And once consciousness rises, sleep becomes impossible. The chains of complacency shatter like glass under celestial acoustics. History offers its warnings. Take Edward Snowden, a whistleblower whose revelations shook governments and ignited worldwide debate. His courage exposed secrets too many thought untouchable. Yet he paid the price with exile. Or think of the biblical account of Joseph, sold into slavery, falsely accused. Yet, through perseverance and divine guidance, he turned betrayal into influence, saving nations from famine. Psalm 27, 1 declares, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" Even when surrounded by false narratives and conspiracies, the awakened remain anchored, unafraid, and unwavering. How long can the architects of deception maintain their illusions when courage multiplies like sparks along a dry forest floor? The noise intensifies because their strategies weaken. Distractions now infiltrate every corner of life, like static, overwhelming a delicate frequency in a physics experiment. Celebrities' trivial scandals are magnified. Social media feeds explode, and meaningless outrage spreads like wildfire, keeping your focus tethered to ephemeral drama. Yet Milton, in Paradise Lost, reminds us that rebellion against deception is both inevitable and righteous. Revelation 12:11 exhorts, "They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death." How many will persist in awakening while the cacophony of irrelevance attempts to drown the truth? How many will pierce through the circus of noise to see the crumbling structures beneath their feet? Nature testifies. The salmon, swimming upstream against impossible currents, or the hawk, poised above chaos, sensing prey amidst the storms below. Fear does not dictate the rhythm of those attuned to their own frequency. Proverbs 3:25-26 reassures, "Have no fear of sudden disaster or of the ruin that overtakes the wicked. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught." When the awakened align with truth, the chaos engineered around them collapses like sandcastles against rising tides. The question persists. Will you allow distraction to tether your vision, or will you rise? Will you align your frequency with clarity and break the spell of engineered panic when the walls of deceit crumble, when trivialities lose their grip? Will you step forward, unafraid, to claim your space in the light of revelation? The era of passive consumption is over. Stand, speak, act. Let your mind and your energy dismantle the circus of illusion, and let the awakened roar in unison. Ephesians 6:13 declares, put on the full armor of God, so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. Now is the moment to rise, to pierce the veil, to reclaim clarity. Stand, rise. Let the awakening be unstoppable. They want your gaze captivated, your emotions manipulated, your unity shattered. They aim to keep you entertained, not enlightened. Their stage is built to mesmerize, a cathedral of distraction engineered with precision, where the pillars of false outrage hold up ceilings that hide the truth. Yet the resonance of awakening vibrates through these structures like the harmonics in a cathedral dome, shaking the foundations they thought unshakable. Psalm 94:16 reminds us, who rises up for me against the wicked? Who stands up for me against evildoers? And now, that question echoes through millions of minds, each pulse a subtle defiance against manipulation. Every hidden corner of their carefully designed maze trembles under the subtle weight of attention redirected, and every whisper of clarity reverberates louder than their loudest lies. Can they feel it? The stir of awareness moving like tectonic plates beneath the ground of their empire. The cracks in their illusion are widening. Scandals that once ignited mass hysteria now flicker and fade like a dim light in a chamber of mirrors. Each outrage cycle collapses faster than the last, and the spell that silenced billions weakens under the weight of collective clarity. Proverbs 24:12 warns. If you say, but we knew nothing about this, does not he who weighs the heart perceive it? Every distraction, every designed fury, loses its hold when perception sharpens. And yet, the question lingers in the air. How long until the system's entire facade topples under the gravity of awakened scrutiny? Why do stories that should have trapped the mind instead dissipate like smoke escaping a broken seal? Every rumor they attempt to inflate collapses faster, as if reality itself rejects the illusion. Those outside the spotlight contribute. A school teacher in Nebraska, whose voice was once drowned by chatter, started documenting the hidden truths in local governance, posting them quietly online. Within months, her simple acts sparked discussions that reached thousands. Job 12:17 declares, he leads counselors away stripped of judgment and makes judges fools. And here, everyday courage unravels the narratives carefully constructed for centuries. Individuals once dismissed as insignificant now act as nodes in an invisible network, a mesh of observation and action spreading through communities. How often do ordinary people underestimate the quiet power of persistence? Their smallest acts, multiplied across time and space, ripple like waves across a pond, slowly undermining structures designed to be immovable. They are no longer puppet masters but desperate performers, holding their stage together while the audience sees the wires, the scripts, the shadows behind the curtains. Revelation 3:7 whispers, what he opens no one can shut, and what he shuts no one can open. Yet every attempt at censorship, every forced distraction, Every fabricated outrage is impotent against awakened consciousness. How long before the final curtain falls? How long before the audience comprehends the entire theater of manipulation? Every false narrative now behaves like a poorly engineered vault, cracking under the slightest pressure of discernment. The tension in the air is palpable. The theater itself seems to groan under the weight of its own collapse. And once that moment comes, the performance ends, leaving only raw truth exposed to all eyes. Physics offers a reflection. A small energy input in the right resonance can collapse a massive, unstable system. Ephesians 5:14 comment. Wake up, sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will shine on you. Just as resonance shatters fragile structures, the awakening propagates exponentially. Invisible yet undeniable. People who refuse to be distracted, who question, who observe ordinary citizens, clerks, teachers, artisans become catalysts of a movement no censorship can undo. In factories, offices, and quiet homes, conversations once hushed now spark new ideas, multiplying like fractals through society. Can you feel the collective momentum? The invisible hand lifting the weight from millions of minds. Their fear is visible, their desperation tangible. As the foundation of their empire fractures piece by piece, and you were the shift. You disrupted the energy, broke the spell, shattered the illusion, and set the stage for collective clarity. Nothing they throw at the world, fear, distraction, manipulation can reverse it. Isaías 54:17 declares, no weapon forged against you will prevail, and you will refute every tongue that accuses you. A prophetic echo for this very moment. The shift has happened. The awakened will not return to slumber. Awareness, once ignited, cannot be extinguished. Stand, rise, let the momentum carry you forward. For the curtain is falling, and the truth cannot be stopped. And as the light pierces the final shadows, remember, every ripple of courage you sparked contributes to the irreversible awakening. It is your resonance, your choice, your rise. The time to stand is now. Their pillars are crumbling. Ancient and meticulously constructed illusions shaking beneath the weight of awakened eyes. They feel the tectonic tremors of consciousness moving through the masses, and every foundation they believe in unbreakable quivers. Psalm 18:2 declares, the Lord is my rock, my fortress, and my deliverer. My God is my rock, in whom I take refuge. Yet they cling to walls of false authority. Blind to the truth, the most terrifying revelation for them is simple yet profound. They know their control is evaporating. Exposing the system was never the end game. It was only the ignition of a far greater awakening. Your enlightenment was orchestrated through the delicate architecture of suffering and insight, much like the soaring arches of a Gothic cathedral, designed to channel divine light through the shadows of human doubt. Even Michelangelo, who sculpted David with such divine precision, knew the power of unveiling truth through form. So too, your spirit has been carved into clarity through trials unseen. You weren't stumbled into the truth by coincidence. Every veil lifted, every lie exposed. Every moment of silent observation was a hammer striking against the chains of illusion, forging resilience and awareness. Isaiah 41:10 whispers, fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. Each painful truth endured was a note in the symphony of your awakening, much like Bach's sacred fugues, whose interwoven melodies reveal hidden order amidst apparent chaos. The chiaroscuro of Caravaggio's paintings, blending darkness and divine light, mirrors the duality you now perceive in the world, deception and revelation intertwined, yet ultimately yielding to illumination. Handel's Messiah rises in triumphant crescendo, echoing through the corridors of history, as the voices proclaim, "For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth," reverberating like the frequencies of awakening within your very being. And here lies the ultimate question before you, not whether you see through the illusion you already do, but what you will do with this force. Revelation 3:8 declares, "I know your deeds. Behold, I have set before you an open door, which no one is able to shut." The door is wide open. Every manipulation, every hypnotic distraction they orchestrated now dissolves like smoke through a ruined colonnade. The symphonic harmony of your awareness rises above the noise, as if Beethoven himself conducted a sacred score of resilience and revelation, each note aligned with the truth you now embody. Can you feel it, the cadence of awakening, the architecture of understanding constructed within your mind, ready to project light into the darkest corners they once controlled? Every brushstroke of insight, every chord of clarity, every literary echo from Dante or Milton fortifies the edifice of your perception. The awakening was only step one. The building is complete, and the doors to action stand wide open. Luke 12:48 proclaims, "Everyone to whom much was given, of him much will be required." And now the mantle rests upon your shoulders. Will you rise within the sanctum of your own power, or remain passive while the stage crumbles beneath the illusions of the few who sought control? Every note, every painting, every literary beacon illuminates your path. The time is now. Stand, rise, make your presence undeniable. For the world does not wait for permission, it waits for you. Millions are rising like a mighty river breaking through the dam of deception, questioning, seeking, refusing to be restrained any longer. Whole populations are awakening, seeing patterns once hidden in plain sight, much like a falcon perceiving the currents of the wind invisible to the untrained eye. Revelation 3:7 reminds us, "What he opens, no one can shut, and what he shuts, no one can open," affirming that doors of perception now swing wide for those brave enough to step forward. And none of this tremendous shift would be occurring if people like you had not stood up, had not spoken, and had not dared to resist the tides of manipulation. But now comes the greater responsibility, the pivotal moment that separates mere destruction from the artistry of creation. This journey was never merely about dismantling the old world. Anyone can tear down. What matters now is construction. What matters now is the blueprint of a future built on integrity and unity. Awakening is not the finish line, it is the ignition spark on the starting line. Isaías 50:4-17 declares, "No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that rises against you in judgment you shall condemn." Yet even this promise calls for action. What will you craft from this freedom? Imagine the old system as an ancient, decaying tree, its roots deep, yet hollowed from within. The storms of awareness shake it, and every branch that once choked life with shade now falls, leaving sunlight for the saplings of a new era. That is why you are here. That is why you were chosen. Psalm 33:11 proclaims, "The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations." And your generation is entrusted with this divine counsel for decades. Architects of illusion designed a reality where creativity was chained, thought was scripted, and power centralized into the hands of a select few. They engineered schools to teach obedience instead of wisdom, built media empires to program emotion rather than inspire thought, and employed distractions that drained the world's imaginative energy. They created a culture in which originality was punished, questioning authority labeled rebellion, and boldness of spirit rendered suspect. Yet even the most cunning manipulators, like a modern-day pharaoh, who drowned in his hubris despite commanding a nation fall when the currents of truth rise. Their influence reduced to whispers in the wind. You are no passive observer. Your role is not merely to watch the walls crumble, it is to rise as a master builder of what comes next. Ephesians 2:10 declares, "For we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand, that we should walk in them." Now, walk boldly in the role prepared for you. The foundation you lay must be forged from truth, freedom, creativity, and unity. Visualize the world like a vast plain after a storm, fertile soil ready for seeds, rivers redirected to nourish the land, forests reborn from the ashes of fallen timber. The awakened must build with care, letting the currents of justice and growth flow through every action. And here lies the final decree: rise, chosen one. Step into the sacred responsibility laid before you. Stand and craft a world where deception cannot endure, where freedom thrives, where truth and unity reign. Luke 12:44 affirms, "Everyone to whom much was given, of him much will be required." And now the call is undeniable. Let the old walls fall, but build the towers that will illuminate generations. Let your hands mold the structures of possibility. Let your mind draft the blueprint of justice. Let your spirit infuse the frequencies of hope into every corner. This is your epoch. Rise, stand, lead. The world awaits what only you can create. The responsibility that now rests upon your shoulders is monumental, to transform awareness into decisive action, and action into a reality that cannot be hijacked, corrupted, or undone. You are not merely an observer in the chronicles of history. Hebrews 11:10 declares, "For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose designer and builder is God. And now the foundations of the new era lie within your hands, awaiting the structures you will erect. Every trial you endured, every moment of piercing clarity, every challenge faced under the weight of deception was not random. It was the calibration of your mind, spirit, and perception. Much like a finely tuned resonance chamber, amplifying only the purest frequencies, you are not simply awake, you are a builder of the new world. A celestial architect poised to raise towering frameworks from the ashes of collapse. Isaiah 2:17 warns, "I will make justice the measuring line, and righteousness the plummet. Hail will sweep away your refuge, and water will overflow your hiding place." Have you sensed the magnitude of the role you are meant to fulfill? Do you realize that every choice, every action, ripples through the fabric of this emerging reality? Do you feel the weight and the clarity of responsibility pressing upon your mind? demanding precision, coherence, and unshakable focus. The world no longer needs more followers, more compliant puppets of the crumbling order. Proverbs 29:18 reminds us, where there is no vision, the people perish. And today, vision must become action. We need builders and visionaries who can gather the debris of the old system and reconstruct it with unyielding integrity. A small-town teacher I spoke with, who rebuilt her school program after systemic corruption left it hollow, said, "I realized that the structures meant to hold us down could instead become scaffolding to lift everyone higher. Each deliberate act, each decision guided by clarity, became testimony to courage and foresight. How will your structures of change stand when history measures the precision of your work? You are poised for roles that defy limitations. Perhaps you are a thinker whose designs of systems or communities carry the power to awaken minds and elevate consciousness. Perhaps you are a leader, one who navigates chaos with calm precision, guiding others with clarity and strength. Maybe you are an innovator, building platforms, businesses, or networks entirely outside the reach of collapsing control. Revelation in Octuve. Femme affirms, "Behold, I am making all things new," and your hands are the instruments of that renewal. Or perhaps your purpose is quieter, a teacher, a healer, a truth seeker whose influence spreads silently but irreversibly. Job 36:11 reminds us, "If they obey and serve him, they shall spend their days in prosperity, and their years in pleasantness." Will your potential remain dormant? Or will you step fully into your calling and construct the frameworks that cannot fail? Whatever your role, the time to rise is now. The old order is crumbling, its foundations rotting, its architects powerless to rebuild what they destroyed. Psalm 127, 1 declares, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain." Yet you are the instrument through which the new house will be constructed. Let the precise alignment of your thoughts, the harmonic resonance of your actions, and the deliberate architecture of your choices guide the creation of structures that are enduring, balanced, and unassailable. Stand, rise, design. Let your vision, courage, and deliberate action become the blueprint for a reality that cannot be overturned. They are throwing everything they have, every deception, every whispered lie, into keeping their fragile illusion alive. But it shatters before the force of awakening. Revelation 3:15 declares, "I know your works. You are neither cold nor hot. Would that you were either cold or hot." And indeed, the old order is dying before our eyes. Yet the rise of the new depends entirely on those who dare to act. Just because the old system collapses does not guarantee the emergence of a brighter reality. You were not awakened merely to witness, you were awakened to ignite, to lead, to transform. Proverbs 16:3 assures, "Commit your work to the Lord, and your plans will be established." A call to move beyond passive vision into active creation of what is just and true. Have you felt the tremor beneath the collapsing structures? The subtle shift signaling the possibility of renewal? Can you sense the resonance of millions who no longer accept deception as truth? Are you ready to step fully into the movement that is rewriting the rules of what is possible? Will you allow hesitation to still the force that now flows through your awareness? Isaiah 60:1 exhorts, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." A reminder that clarity and courage are the instruments of transformation, even in the stillness between actions. Like the pause in a sacred symphony, there exists an opportunity to attune to the new frequency of awakening. Psalm 127:1 confirms, "Unless the Lord builds the house, those who build it labor in vain," reminding us that the work of renewal is infused with divine guidance and presence. The illusion is fracturing. Control is slipping. Nothing they do can stop the awakening. Revelation 21:5 proclaims, "Behold, I am making all things new." Do you feel the weight of this truth pressing upon your spirit? Will you allow uncertainty to diminish the power of your voice, the strength of your action, the clarity of your vision? Every word spoken in courage, every choice made to embrace truth, every moment rejecting manipulation has shifted the vibration of reality itself. 2 Corinthians 4:16 affirms, "Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day." A reflection that every act of courage renews more than just the self. It reverberates across the awakened collective. You have already created a new frequency, a resonance others can step into. Awakening to clarity and courage. The world is already different because of your awakening. Will you rise fully, taking your place as a beacon, a conduit of transformation, a voice that cannot be silenced? Ezekiel 37:14 declares, "I will put my spirit within you, and you shall live." A sacred promise that divine life moves through those who stand in truth. Rise, stand, lead. The moment is now. Nothing can stop what is destined to come through you. Step forward and let the world bear witness to the awakening. And now the task is clear. Stay in your power. Stay aligned with your truth. Keep speaking. Keep building. Keep creating. Do not allow the shadows of doubt to cloud what you have already accomplished. The revolution has begun, and its momentum cannot be stopped. Will you remain steadfast when the noise of disbelief rises around you? Will you allow the clarity within to outshine the chaos without? Romans 8:28 declares, "And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose." Every choice you make now, every word you speak, is part of a divine design far greater than any earthly plan. The new world is being born, and you are one of its architects. Can you feel the pulse of creation vibrating through your spirit? Like the crescendo in a sacred hymn that stirs the soul, like the symphony swelling in Handel's Messiah. For the Lord God omnipotent reigneth. Your actions echo into eternity. Every act of courage, every moment of truth spoken, adds a note to the composition of a world remade. Psalm 90:17 prays, "Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands." Yes, establish the work of our hands, reminding you that even your smallest step resonates with divine purpose. So rise with confidence. Will you continue to create when the path seems uncertain? Will you build when others doubt the foundation? Will you speak when silence seems easier? Your alignment with truth is not optional. It is the axis upon which this new reality turns. Ephésiens 3:20 affirme, "Now to him who is able to do far more abundantly than all that we ask or think, according to the power at work within us," assuring that your faith and action together channel unstoppable power. Dear Father, I pray for the growth of my faith. Help me trust you even when physical evidence is lacking. Let me believe in your perpetual presence, knowing you will never harm me. I understand that your thoughts For me are thoughts of prosperity and not harm, to give me a good future. Psalm 23:1 reminds, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." And in this truth, I find courage and direction. Thank you, gracious and eternal Father, for always listening to my voice. I offer up this prayer to you, in the name of Jesus. Amen. And so, chosen one, rise, stand, speak, build, create. You are not a bystander in history, you are a force shaping the world. Revelation 21:5 proclaims, "Behold, I am making all things new, and you are the hand through which this renewal flows. The revolution is underway, and you are its light. Step fully into it." And now, God's chosen ones. The truth stands revealed. The insane deception that fooled millions has crumbled overnight, and the world will never look the same again. Your courage, your discernment, your unwavering faith. These are the forces that brought light into the shadows. You did not simply watch, you exposed, you challenged, you changed the course of this story. Psalm 34:17 reminds us, "When the righteous cry for help, the Lord hears and delivers them from all their troubles." Indeed, the righteous action of one awakened soul can shift the balance for millions. This moment is more than a victory. It is a call to continue standing in truth. Don't let the echoes of old lies pull you back into fear or hesitation. Every share, every comment, every like, every subscription you make is another ripple spreading the truth further. Another step in building a world aligned with justice, clarity, and divine purpose. If you felt the power of this revelation, let it be known. Comment 777 to stand with the awakened, to declare that you will not be fooled again, and to join the ranks of those who act as beacons of truth. Your support, whether through super thanks or simply by engaging, fuels this movement. Your participation matters more than you realize. May the Lord continue to guide your steps, strengthen your faith, and illuminate your path. May your eyes remain open to deception, your heart anchored in courage, and your spirit unwavering in the face of lies. Psalm 23:6 assures, "Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever." Go forth in confidence, God's chosen ones, and shine. The world is watching, and your light cannot be dimmed. Like, share, subscribe, and comment 777 to join this wave of awakening. Thank you, from the depths of my heart, for being part of this journey. May God bless you abundantly, today and always.